Hello, welcome back. This is the final video for the reproductive system lectures. This is going to be covering the female hormones and the regulation of these cycles. So it has a similar flow chart to what we saw in the male hormones. So we're going to kind of attack it the same way. And then again, we're going to see that chart that I finished up with the uterine cycle, but now we're going to kind of overlay those hormones and their roles on each one of those cycles, the ovarian and the uterine cycle. So let's go ahead and get started. So here we have the diagram, you'll have this in your text, of your hormones. So again, it's similar hormones, GnRH, FSH, LH, but we also have, instead of testosterone, we have estrogen and progesterone. So we're going to see some of those complex relationships. And you'll notice there's quite a few arrows and some differences that change here and there. So I will try to kind of do the big picture idea for these particular hormones. So I will start at the top with the hypothalamus. So again, it's this same hypothalamic regulator. It's a tropic hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, because it releases the gonadotropins, the FSH and the LH, from the anterior lobe of the hypothalamus to go down to the ovaries, which would then release their hormones, estrogen, progesterone, to other body tissues. So we will start with our GnRH. Now, unlike in the male, which has probably had kind of a steady state release of GnRH, in females, the GnRH is a pulse frequency, which affects how the FSH and LH are produced. And that's better shown on the next slide, kind of all of those panels stacked on top of each other. So at certain frequencies, so if you're going fast, that's a high frequency. If you're going slow, that's a low frequency. So the FSH and LH respond to the changes in pulse frequency. So if GnRH pulse frequency is low, they're not going to be stimulated. If the pulse frequency is high, they will be stimulated. The thing about me making videos is I can't go back and forth, so I'm just going to go through this and then I'll talk about that pulse frequency and kind of review that when we get to the next slide. So whenever the GnRH pulse frequency is high enough, and we're going to trigger the release of FSH, we'll talk about that first. So FSH, like the name implies, follicle stimulating hormone. So it's going to go and target those developing follicles. So they are, right, so our primordial follicles, primary follicles, secondary follicles, they are growing because they are receiving the signal from FSH. It triggers those follicles primarily to secrete estrogen. So estrogen is kind of like the testosterone compared to men. So it does quite a few things. So it has that same effect on the CNS. So your libido, your sexual drive, those motivations, those types of things, that's going to be driven by estrogen in females. It helps with bone and muscle growth. So when we talked about way back in 231, osteoporosis, osteopenia, losing bone mass for women post-menopausal, it really has a big impact on their bone masses because they lose the release of the estrogen from their ovaries, and estrogen is a bone stimulator. So that's a cool connection there. Maintaining female secondary sexual characteristics. This is breast tissue, body fat distribution, voice kind of range, those types of things would be female secondary sexual characteristics. Maintaining accessory glands, that is glands in the female reproductive tract as well as mammary glands. And then estrogen also helps and stimulates that endometrial growth, which we'll see on the next paneled slide. So that's FSH, triggering the follicles primarily to release estrogen, and estrogen does this wide variety of functions. If you'll notice, it also has some inhibitory functions. So inhibin inhibits the secretion of FSH. And we'll see that on the next panel. The other hypothalamic hormone is LH, luteinizing hormone. So luteinizing hormone here triggers the corpus luteum to produce progesterone. And FSH is really, really important for that signal for ovulation that happens on day 14. So I like this chart. It does a good flow of kind of showing you where things connect to. So estrogens increase pulse frequency, progesterones decrease pulse frequency. Most of it's stimulatory, inhibin is inhibitory, but that without seeing what these things are affecting, it's a little bit hard to kind of wrap your brain around it. So that's why. So I like this graph better, or this chart better, because it really helps you see how everything is aligned, all the way from that hierarchy of the hypothalamus to the pituitary to the ovary to the uterus, how it's all coordinated and lined up. So when we're talking about the GnRH pulse frequency, here we can see that low level here, and it kind of reaches a peak 45, 50-ish around mid-cycle. So when it is low, both FSH and LH is low. As it is slowly going up a little bit, we can see the FSH levels are going a little bit higher. FSH, remember, is follicle stimulating hormone, so we're going to be stimulating these follicles to secrete estrogen, and we can really start seeing those estrogens increase as the follicle gets bigger, going towards day 14. At day 14, we reach our highest GnRH pulse frequency. We see these peaks of LH and FSH, and it's primarily that really high peak of FSH going from like 15 units all the way up to 50 units on this scale. That's what triggers ovulation, the release of the egg broken out of that tertiary follicle. Now, if we take a look at what happens, the GnRH frequency goes way low, FSH and LH are really low, our estrogen levels drop because our follicle pretty much just got destroyed. But what do we see kick up? Like right after that is progesterone. And where did progesterone come from? It came from the newly developed corpus luteum. So as those cells of the follicle basically are changing their identity from estrogen secreting cells to progesterone secreting cells, and so that's your corpus luteum. This is the luteal phase, remember, the second half of your ovarian cycle. And we start seeing a little bit of estrogen come up. So now we have both estrogen and progesterone at high levels, stimulating the functional layer of the endometrium to increase in vascularization, to increase in glandular secretion, because at that day 14, that egg, as it comes down the uterine tube, if it gets fertilized, we want that to land in that nice thick functional layer of the endometrium. And if it does, that's going to result in a pregnancy. If it doesn't, what happens? We don't want that stagnant kind of unused functional layer to maintain. So what happens is that corpus luteum turns into the corpus albicans and it starts to degrade away. And what's going to happen to all of those hormones that are secreted? They tank right here, right? Estrogen goes down. Progesterone goes down, inhibin goes down. All three of those hormones degrade in their concentration, and that loss of hormones, progesterone primarily and estrogen as well, that's what causes those powerful vasoconstriction of those spiral arteries, these guys right here, squiggle, 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 and that's what's going to cause the beginning of menses, kind of going back around to day 1 of the cycle. Now, if implantation took place, if there was a fertilized egg and it landed and it implanted, what that does is it itself sends some messages. I don't know what it is, but there's some chemical messages that go up. It'll go up and tell the corpus luteum to stay corpus luteum. And so what will happen is the progesterone levels stay steady state, the endometrial stays full, implantation happens, and that's pregnancy. If a woman has a problem regulating these hormone levels, so let's say implantation took place, but this signal didn't happen, or that signal happened, but the corpus luteum wasn't maintained and the progesterone dropped, that implanted zygote would get lost in menses. And so that might be a cause of infertility for a woman if they cannot maintain send that signal of implantation to maintain the corpus albicans, or even in the face of the signal, the corpus albicans can't maintain, or maybe not enough progesterone is released from the corpus luteum to maintain. So there's lots of different reasons why infertility can take place, but that could be one of them if these hormones are not coordinated and lined up to keep that pregnancy. After about 9 weeks, after implantation. At that point, the placenta is well enough developed that it starts to maintain the progesterone levels. Then it lets the corpus luteum kind of be done, it degrades away, and then the ovary kind of stays silent for the rest of the gestation of the baby because the placenta is now taking over the job of maintaining the pregnancy. So very cool stuff. So that is our hormone and ovary and uterus and all of this crazy stuff that goes together to allow pregnancy to happen. And if pregnancy doesn't happen, we have this kind of self-cleaning mechanism to sweep away what was unused and be able to grow new endometrium in readiness for the next potential implantation. Now, this last box I didn't really talk about too much yet, but this is just basal body temperature. So a lot of women, if they're trying to conceive, will take their body temperature, and there are changes, not big changes, because look at the scale. We're at like 36.4 up to 36.7. So it's a really small difference, but it's measurable if you get a thermometer that's precise enough. So to know when you ovulate, right, you can keep track like on calendars and stuff, but you can also do these predictors, and a lot of times they use your basal body temperature. So if you're tracking your body temperature, this basal body temperature, and it spikes, then you know ovulation probably just happened. You've got a couple days window to have intercourse, to bring the sperm to the egg, to kind of hit right in that sweet spot, if you will, of a thick endometrium for the fertilized zygote to make a landing and get implanted, and hopefully that's your pregnancy. All right, I think I covered everything on here. And all right, so that's it. That is our reproductive system physiologies, both male and female. Please send questions, stop by a Zoom office hour. And this is our last body system, you guys. That's so amazing. You did it. You made it through all 11 body systems and finished in this weird way with our global pandemic, but you're doing it. And I really thank you guys for being such a good class and being so flexible and adaptable during this time. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the term whenever you are watching this, a great summer, and send me an email or stop by a Zoom office hour. I'd be happy to see you before you take off for this summer. Okay, bye.